Coming to you from deep inside the bowels of a great big empty. Get ready for another episode of The Home Defense Show with Skip Coryell.
And that was Golden Glenn, the official announcer of the Home Defense Show, and I'm your host, Skip Coryell, author of 22 books, Marine Corps veteran, founder of the Second Amendment March, proud father of 7, grandfather to 20 and counting, and as a special bonus, I'm also madly in love with my own wife. My priorities in life are God, family, and country in that order, and I hereby promise to never compromise in my convictions. I may go broke, but I'll never go woke. And joining me today is Deron Boring from the great state of Ohio. Deron, welcome back to the Home Defense Show.
Good afternoon or good evening, I guess it is, Skip. Thanks for having me on again.
Hey, no problem at all. But before we get too far into the show, let's thank our sponsors, United States Concealed Carry Association, shootingclasses.com, Center Shot Indoor Gun Range, and Trinity Training and Security. Deron, before we get started, just give us like a 30-second bio so people know who they're listening to.
Very good. So I'm by trade an attorney, and here in the state of Ohio, and I also play college professor on the side. On probably the more interested side here, I'm an NRA USCCA instructor. I'm also a Rangemaster certified firearms instructor. Primarily teach self-defense law, Ohio concealed carry law. But actually this year probably going to be getting back into some on-the-range teaching of actual shooting skills as well. So right now, I think the only class I have on my schedule, I'm doing a Ohio self-defense law class coming up here soon in the Canton, Ohio area. And that one's actually free. We just decided to do that as a giveaway. And I've got registration for that at shootingclasses.com.
Awesome. Well, that is so important because it's like first you have to survive the gunfight, but then you have to survive, your court appearance afterwards if it comes to that.
Absolutely. And there's so many people I talk to that just really don't take the law into consideration. They just think that they're going to be the good guy and they're going to be the hero. What's funny, and I'm sorry for the aside here, but when I teach this, I always use 2 slides. And the first slide is actually of when Cleveland Gasp actually for one time won a championship. And it was the parade in downtown Cleveland after the Cavaliers won the championship with the thousands and thousands of people celebrating that. And I say, that's what everybody thinks it's going to be like after you win a self-defense shooting or involved in one. And the reality of it is then I show a picture of somebody either in handcuffs or sitting at an interrogation table talking. Because you're probably not going to be lauded as, even if you are completely justified, completely in the right, you're probably not going to be lauded as the hero you think you are.
Yeah, no ticker tape parade, huh?
Probably not.
Well, and the thing is, and I get this from, my students, right? It's like some of them know the law and know how to apply it. Some don't know the law, but they want to know the law.
Mm-hmm.
Others don't know the law and are convinced that they know the law. Those are the most dangerous ones, I think, the last
They
group.
are, and I sort of would tag the subset to that. Those that think they know the law and can't wait to use it to their benefit. Do you know how many
Oh,
people I get? Well, can I this? Or
oh
can
yeah,
I that?
yeah,
With almost
yeah,
like an excitement in their voice. And I just look at them and say, you have no idea.
yeah,
Please look at this a different way.
yeah. Well, that's the way it is, and that's part of the reason I want to have you on today, um, because there are so many nuances to the legal system. The legal system, I think it scares me more than the guy pointing a gun at my face because it's like, okay, I know how to deal with the guy who's trying to kill me, but I don't really know how to deal with the county prosecutor or what to say to the cop or things
Mm-hmm.
like that. And I think most people are like that. Um, but one of the things that I wanted you to talk about today, Deron, was things like, um, you know, manslaughter, involuntary, voluntary, aggravated assault, all those different terms, all those crimes that a prosecutor can charge you with that we don't even know exist yet. I think there's just tons of them out there, and you know more of them than I do.
Well, and I'll even say on top of that, then you've even got the civil side of it, of all the things you're subjecting yourself as well. And I don't know that we have the time for all of that today, but I'll tell you, when I teach this, I have one slide that I use that always says something to the effect of, even just displaying a firearm many times, you are committing, and then immediately it's the entire list of things. And I admit it's a little over dramatic, or as my wife likes to call it, your class just makes me think of all the ways I'm going to go to jail. And while it's not my intent for the class to be that way, I want people to understand that, even if it goes completely right, you may have a lot of questions to answer over time, and there's a lot to consider. And again, it's not just the ticker tape parade that exactly like you said, and my list is, anything from aggravated murder all the way down to, in Ohio, what they call menacing.
Hmm.
And people don't consider that. So I guess I'll jokingly say that, I'm an attorney, but I'm not your attorney. So, just always take what I say with a grain of salt here on this.
Okay. Well, where should we start then, Darren? Should we start from like the most serious crime you can be charged with, or do it
You
in
know what? Let's
reverse?
just start at the top. Let's just start at the worst and
All
work your
right.
way down. So let's start with the life, the something that has the life sentence to it, or, at least in Ohio, still a possible death penalty specification to it. And that's what in Ohio we call aggravated murder. Other states call it first degree murder. But basically that is your typical pre-planned causing the death of somebody intentionally.
Hmm.
And again, I always put that as you sit at home, you're angry at somebody, you can't wait to get rid of them. So you plot and you plot and you plot and you plan, and at some point you carry out that plan, intentionally causing their death. And that's the aggravated or first degree murder. And being realistic, that's probably not an issue in most self-defense cases. But I'm not going to say all of them. For instance, there was a case in downtown Cleveland. Oh, I don't know. It's probably been 10 or 15 years ago that a guy got into what he defined as a self-defense incident in a parking lot downtown. And this was a parking lot downtown that I knew very well. And long made short, this gentleman was so afraid of the parking lot attendant he got into the encounter with. He walked the 200 yards back to his car, opened his trunk, retrieved his gun from the trunk and the gun case in the trunk, closed the trunk, walked all the way back across the parking lot before shooting and killing that parking lot attendant that he felt he had to defend himself from.
Ooh,
Um,
wow.
yeah. Uh, at that point in time, that crosses the line from, the imminence and fear of immediate bodily harm to bordering on, at that point, almost the prior calculation needed or the pre-planning needed before. Because I mean, this guy walked all the way across the parking lot, grabbed a gun, and walked back.
Yeah.
At that point, you're teetering on, at that point, again, first degree or aggravated murder, because you planned this. I mean, at this
Hmm.
point, you planned on taking a gun back to this gentleman to end his life.
Yeah.
So again, I generally don't think you're going to claim self-defense and probably get tagged with aggravated murder, but it happens.
Yeah. Well, when people think about the average person, when they think about, uh, you know, premeditated murder, they think in terms of, okay, you planned it out for a long time. But my understanding of it is you don't have to plan it out for a long time. You could plan it out for like 30 seconds and
Yeah.
still be charged with that.
And that's again where, and I don't actually remember what that guy was charged with or convicted in that case. But I mean, again, that's teetering on, in my opinion, pre-planning,
Hmm.
because that's a long time to think about that, both to the car and back at that point in time. And by the time you think about it that long, you have made your decision long before you ever get back to that.
Yeah. Otherwise, you don't need the gun. He could have just got in his car and drove away.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And so then I guess we'll tag into that. Then you've got murder. And again, Ohio just calls it murder. Other places call that second degree murder. And that's again, it's essentially the same thing. It's still purposely causing the death of somebody else, but it's without that prior calculation or without that pre-planning on things.
Hmm. So that
And
could be
again,
a self-defense
I think
shooting.
that's probably more so what you would see in a case like that. Because again, you are, really Ohio. it's only a couple of sentences. It's purposely causing the death of another person.
Hmm.
Um, and if you allow me to just run on a tangent for a half a second, it also drives me nuts because the other half of that statute in Ohio is causing the unlawful termination of a pregnancy.
Mm.
And I don't really probably want to go down that line too much of what I feel about that, but because the hypocrisy in the law knows no bounds sometimes, I
Hmm.
think. Um, but anyway, I digress. Again, that's purposely causing the death of somebody else. And I think that's, that could be based on a split second decision at that point in time. So again, I think from a self-defender, that's something I think to be more concerned about. And, in Ohio for something like that, you're looking at 15 to life
Mm.
for that. Not exactly a pleasant outcome. May not be the death penalty. Still nothing I want to face.
So let's put that into concrete terms here. Um, I'm going to give you a scenario, and you tell me whether or not I could tell me what I could be charged with. Uh, okay, someone comes home from work early um, to surprise their wife and take her out to dinner. They find her in bed with the neighbor. They fly off the handle and shoot him. He dies. What would that be considered murder? First
And
degree murder?
that's funny. That's actually the next thing in my order down.
Oh,
That's voluntary manslaughter. At least in Ohio law, I will tell you that's voluntary manslaughter.
okay.
Because in Ohio, voluntary manslaughter requires some sort of a heightened emotional state. Actually, then the heightened emotional state is triggered by the victim. So in other words, the accused wrongdoer, their heightened emotional state is triggered by the victim. So I think that's where a voluntary manslaughter would come from there,
Okay.
because you've got some sort of serious provocation, and you've just listed about the highest provocation possible.
Okay. All right. Well, okay, so that's voluntary manslaughter. I've heard the term involuntary manslaughter kicked around. What is that?
So again, I'm the Ohio attorney that knows Ohio law, and it's been a long time since I've taken the bar exam, and I know other states' definitions, so forgive me. But in Ohio, involuntary manslaughter is actually what happens if you're committing another crime and something happens.
Mm,
So, for instance, you're fighting with somebody in the street and you punch them so hard that they fall down and hit their head and they die. And it's involuntary because you did not intend to cause their death. You did not intend to cause the injury that led to their death. But you were committing another crime, an assault, and as an outflowing of that assault, then the victim died. And I guess that's where you can contrast that to the murder, where it says, with either prior calculation purposely causing, or just purposely causing. In that case, you didn't intend to cause their death, but the criminal action that you undertook led to the death. And again, that's where you get the involuntary manslaughter here in
hmm.
Ohio.
Well, what about well, you probably hate it when a student says, "What about?" And
Nah,
then,
that's what makes it fun.
well, all right, I'm going to make it fun for you then. What about you get attacked, someone's punching you, you punch him back, you turn out to be more aggressive or a better fighter than them. So in self-defense, you fight back and then they end up dying. Would that be the same kind of a thing?
I think that would be the same thing, but I mean, again, they would have to try and convince a jury at that point that not only were you either committing or attempting to commit another crime, in that case, an assault, um, but in that attempt of commission of that assault, whether you are or you're just attempting to, that person died. So in Ohio, that's something that I've seen people charged with an involuntary manslaughter with a bad self-defense argument there.
Hmm.
And I'm going to be realistic. When I read the appellate court opinions, in Ohio every week, and I see somebody claiming self-defense, 90% of the time it's, I hate to say this, it's thug on thug, drug deal gone bad, and they just claim self-defense. And typically the appeals court wants nothing to do with it and blows it out of the water. So really, honestly, I would say there aren't that many good self-defense shootings that I see end up prosecuted. Can it happen? Absolutely. Most of the case law I read is, again, it's thug on thug. I hate to say it, but that's what it is.
Well, isn't that most crime? It's like gang related or drug related or
Yep.
something like that.
Yep, and they're just trying to use the buzzword self-defense, and typically in appeals court, if the trial court doesn't do a good enough shredding it, the appeals court, will and say, no, no, you were committing another crime when this happened. You were not, justifiably defending yourself. And I think that's what you're going to get here on that.
All right. Well, what's next?
Well, so again, I'm using the Ohio hierarchy here. Ohio actually has what's called reckless homicide. And I actually think reckless homicide and its sibling negligent homicide actually are worthy of a good discussion here.
Okay.
Because in Ohio, reckless homicide is the idea that you didn't have intent to cause somebody harm. And, and despite having no intent, you were so reckless or so stupid that somebody died based on your behavior. And, I'd put that in, doing something as dumb as playing Russian roulette with a revolver or, see it's not loaded and pointing at somebody and pulling the trigger. Um, in that case to where, somebody loses their life. And again, not necessarily from a self-defense aspect am I expecting to see a reckless homicide thing.
Mhm.
But I mean, that's a possibility in our world. If you're careless with a gun, and somebody dies, you've
Yeah.
got reckless homicide.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, uh, Generally, what is how many years can you get for something like that?
Reckless homicide's actually, I think it's a third degree felony, if I remember, which you're looking at, I think, a year to 3 years in prison. I don't remember that off the top of my head, but I mean, it's still not great. It's still a felony.
Hmm.
But I don't want to say a little more forgivable because there was no intent, but at some point, if you don't have that malintent, being stupid is still enough to be charged with a crime. But it once you lack that intent, I think you lack some of the significant penalty on that.
Well, I've heard this, and you can tell me if it's true or not. I've heard that intent is one of the hardest things to prove in court.
It is, and and the fancy Latin legal term to that is mens rea, and that basically means an evil or a guilty mind,
Hmm.
and that's really hard to prove. And really, the only way you prove mindset most of the time is based on conduct, which is why when I teach deadly force law to students, I say your conduct matters. It doesn't just matter, at the point of the incident. It matters on what stickers you have on your car. It matters on what sign you have outside your house.
Hmm.
It matters on what you post on Facebook. Because maybe your intention looks pure when you defend yourself on that street corner. But if you post on Facebook, constantly that, I ain't backing down, stand your ground means stand your ground. I'll shoot anybody that gets too close to me.
Yeah.
That certainly is going to go a long way in showing your intent, even if your actions at that point in time maybe didn't look that way.
Yeah. Well, it's becoming pretty standard now for prosecutors to check out all of your social media accounts and everything that you have on your computer and your phone now, isn't it?
It's the truth. I actually have a friend of mine that's a retired police officer from a very large metropolitan department in eastern half of the country. I'll just be that non-specific.
Hmm.
And a couple years ago, he sent me a Facebook post from some friends on actually a firearms group that he was in. And it was a ring notification for their neighborhood that there was an armed suspect wandering the neighborhood. And literally all the comments underneath it in this group were, I'd be getting in my safe, finding the one I've always wanted to use. I'd be giddy sitting there waiting for him to come in my house. You know, I'd be excited, and I read that with my head buried going,
Hmm.
this screams intent and motive at this point because you're never going to be able to say they broke in my house and I was fearing for my life when they can grab a Facebook post and say, I'm giddy.
Yeah. 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 And, realistically, I think a lot of people, when they get on social media, they don't feel accountable anymore, and
Hmm.
they say things based on getting a reaction from someone else, and
Yep.
they could be innocent and say, "Okay, I really don't mean I want to shoot this guy," but they say it, just to
Yep.
get a reaction from people or to be look cool or something like that.
Even the bumper sticker, keep honking, I'm reloading. I mean,
Yeah.
just I I grind my teeth every time I see that because at some point, that does start questioning, was this self-defense or was this purposely causing the death of somebody because you wanted to?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that a prosecutor would be fair with that. Again, you get a good prosecutor, they're smart enough to look through it and probably not going to drag you through the mud on a jury. You get a bad prosecutor, and they're going to make an example out of it.
Yeah. Well, and that begs another question. There's a political aspect to prosecution and how the law is levied out, isn't there?
There is, and again, I'm sorry, I keep speaking from Ohio because that's just what I know so well. But generally speaking, in Ohio, even from really most of the blue counties in Ohio, I just think the prosecutors are relatively fair on cases. They prosecute those
Hmm.
that need to be, and don't. And I'll be very careful how I say this, but I had a client of mine a few years ago get involved in a self-defense incident that ultimately the bad guy ended up face down in a gutter. It took the prosecutor's office in this large county a year and a half before to get it to a grand jury and for a grand jury to say there was no a no bill on that. And again, this is one of the bluest of blue, laughably left counties in Ohio, and the right outcome still came out of it. So
Hmm.
I thankfully don't live in fear of the Soros level prosecutor here that I would in other states or other municipalities. And there are a couple of counties in Ohio I still probably wouldn't want to get tangled up in something, and I just tend to avoid. But for the most part here, at least here, I don't worry about a political prosecution a whole lot. Could it happen? Sure. With the right news coverage and everything else, it could.
Yeah, but still, a year and a half
Yep.
of uncertainty, that's
Yep.
like a living hell. Even if you're
Yep.
going to work, you get out on bail and you're going to work every day, it's like
Yep.
I don't know if I'm going to be in prison,
It's the truth, and my client in this one, again, being careful how I say this has been long gone for years, so it's okay. But I'll tell you that the some of the investigating law enforcement for that basically looked at this client of mine and told him there's no shock that this particular bad guy was face down in a gutter. We're just shocked it didn't happen sooner.
Mm,
So, and it's still, I mean, from again, the bad guy that law enforcement knew well, knew him, said, we're not shocked he ended up face down dead in a gutter. Um, Year and a half.
mm.
Year and a half. That's a long time to worry about. Are you going to go home to your spouse and your kids?
Yeah. Well, you could actually, I mean, that could affect your family, your marriage. All,
Sure.
all kinds of bad things can happen when you're under that amount of stress and uncertainty.
Absolutely. And, and ultimately, he won the gunfight and he went home safe.
Yeah.
And, that's great. But there were a lot of things that happened after that don't scream the glory again that people think they're going to get the ticker tape parade for um with that, and it is scary. It really
Yeah.
is scary.
All right. Well, okay. Anything else we can be charged with?
Well, so just for homicide, I want to talk about negligent homicide for just a second because I
Okay.
think again, not necessarily from a self-defender standpoint, but from just a firearm friendly standpoint, that actually in Ohio requires a deadly weapon. And actually, the classic one for a negligent homicide is something moved in the bushes and you shot it because you thought it was your deer. In reality, it was another hunter taking a break in the bushes.
Hmm.
So, again, not a self-defense thing so much, but, in Ohio, negligent homicide would apply to, again, a negligent hunting accident, joking and playing around with a gun, goofing around. You see all these idiots on webcams playing with guns and, the gun going off. Or even I read an example not too long ago in Ohio, somebody being charged with negligent homicide because they negligently stored the gun and an unauthorized person got into it, a kid,
Mm.
and something bad happened. And so again, not necessarily from a self-defender standpoint, but from just being a responsible gun owner, I think that's worthy of talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll give you another example here. You're driving down the road. Okay. You get a text message and you pull up your phone and you start reading this text message, and then you hear a big thump and you look up there and there's someone attached to your hood. They
Yep.
die. what can you be charged with for something like that?
Well, see, and I'll be honest, I am not an expert in that area, but Ohio has vehicular homicide statutes. They have all kinds of things like that that I'm guessing probably would be more in that line, and
Hmm.
that's out of my wheelhouse. I'll be honest.
Okay, but you can be charged with something for doing
Absolutely. I
that.
mean, that would absolutely be like a vehicular manslaughter or vehicular homicide or what have you on that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of my pet peeves because every day I'll drive down the road and it's like I'll be in like the right lane or whatever. I'm driving along and I glance to my left. Someone is passing me. They don't have their hands on the wheel. They're holding their phone and they're texting while they're passing me. And I'm thinking, man, that's not right. That is just
Well,
not a good idea.
and all it takes is somebody, on the flip side, then they're doing that and somebody's walking across a crosswalk playing on their own darn phone as well, and
Yeah,
you just
yeah,
compound the problem.
yeah. When idiots collide.
It's the truth. It's the truth.
All right. Well, hey, um, we've been going about 30 minutes here, but you got anything else, Darren?
Well, this is a question I always get, and I think this is a quick wrap up on this one. People ask me things like, well, what all can I be charged with? If I pull my gun on somebody and I don't pull the trigger on it, can I get charged with brandishing? Well,
Yeah,
interestingly enough, in Ohio, brandishing is not a thing.
really.
Brandishing is only actually an additional specification on other felonies in Ohio.
Hmm.
So it can add time on, but Ohio does have menacing and aggravated menacing, which are basically the same thing. And if you're, waving your gun around in public, in theory, the police could say that, it was menacing behavior and you could be charged with something there.
Hmm.
So I warn people that, okay, maybe brandishing by its definition isn't something here, but, you have to think. And again, I'll be quick on this one, but assault, even if you don't pull the trigger on somebody, if you put somebody reasonably in fear of serious bodily harm or death and it's not justified, you can be charged with assault.
Yeah.
You can be, and if you shoot them and they don't die, and I think we talked about this on my last appearance, that they don't charge attempted murder anymore, they charge assault. And again, here, attempted murder really isn't a thing. It's, some sort of felonious assault or something like that, which sounds so much better because if you hear felonious assault, you think, well, they just got punched. They didn't get shot.
Hmm.
Well, felonious assault is still shooting somebody. They just didn't die.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, this is like the Grand Canyon.
Hmm.
It's just huge. And so, I mean, maybe is that why they say lawyers are practicing law? Because you're never perfect at it. Because you're,
Never, no, nobody's ever perfect, and every time you think you know everything, you get a rude wake up call, and then there's the fun part of the law changes,
Mhm.
and all it can take is one appeals court opinion or one legislature, and all of a sudden everything you knew changes overnight. So.
Awesome. All right. All right. Well, Darren, hey, that's all good stuff. I know the listeners will appreciate that. Before you go, please tell people again how they can get a hold of you.
Well, so my training company is 1791 Training, and you can find me at shootingclasses.com. And again, I'm going to start doing a few more classes. Last year I didn't do much. This year we'll be doing some self-defense law classes and some other things like that for sure.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much for being on the Home Defense Show today, Darren.
Thanks, Skip. Always fun being here.
All righty. All right, folks, that about wraps it up for this week's show. I've had a good time, and I hope you have too. Please don't forget to thank our sponsors, Center Shot Indoor Gun Range at centershotgunrange.com, shootingclasses.com to help you find the right trainer for your needs, and United States Concealed Carry Association. For all your self-defense needs, go to uscca.com. I've written 20 plus books, and they're all available on Amazon.com in paperback, ebook, and audiobook. This week, check out my thriller novel, Stalking Natalie. I think you'll like it. And if you want training from me in person, then check out Midwest Tactical Training at shootingclasses.com. Please join us again next week for all your home defense needs. In the meantime, God bless and stay safe.
Thank you for joining us this week on The Home Defense Show. Now, get out there and protect the ones you love. We'll see you next week with more of the best.
Bye-bye, boys!
Have fun storming the castle!
Firearms training should be easy.
Instructors can focus on teaching and not worry about all the complex paperwork and management behind the scenes. Just pull the trigger and let us do the administrative work. Welcome to shootingclasses.com.
At Center Shot Gun Range, we are passionate about training. Don't know where to start? We offer a 1-hour new shooter seminar to introduce you to the world of firearms and help you find training opportunities specific to you. Concealed carry, home defense, firearm safety, AR-15, private one-on-one training, custom training, or maybe you're on a security team looking to protect your church or business. We even offer weekday morning and evening classes. Center Shot Gun Range has you covered. Start your journey at centershotgunrange.com.
Hey there. Yeah, you. It's time to level up your skills. Check out shootingclasses.com and explore a wide range of training options. With more than 50 types of classes to choose from, beginner to advanced, concealed carry to medical training, online sessions, and even non-live fire courses, there's something for everyone. Just enter your zip code, use the filters to narrow your search, and find the perfect class for you. This site has all the details: instructor bios, class info, requirements, available dates, and the option to register, all in one place. It's that simple at shootingclasses.com.
In today's world, safety and preparedness are more important than ever. At Trinity Training and Security, we offer comprehensive training for your peace of mind. Whether you're obtaining your concealed pistol license, mastering CPR and first aid, or engaging in scenario-based training, we've got you covered. We look forward to working with you in one of our classes or bringing the class to your church, school, or business. Need security for an event? Protecting your assets? Our team provides private security, close protection, media crew escorts, high security terminations, and more. Always with discretion and professionalism. With Trinity, safety is more than a service. It's a commitment.
Avoid danger, save lives, and keep your loved ones safe. If this sounds good to you, you sound good to me. And I'd like to help you do those things. Avoid danger, save lives, and keep your loved ones safe. If you're looking for more excitement in your life, we have nothing to offer you. But if you are a thoughtful, responsible, nonviolent man or woman, we'd love to teach you what to do if something crazy happens. More importantly, we'd like to teach you what not to do. We currently have over 500,000 members. They are doctors and single moms and firemen and grandmothers and veterans and Democrats and Republicans and members of every faith. But the one thing they all have in common is that they know exactly what to do if something crazy happens. When you're with one of our members, you are safe. Our members know how to de-escalate situations. They know how to calm things down. We are the United States Concealed Carry Association. See what we're all about at usconcealedcarry.com.
Discover the little-known backstory of the U.S. Concealed Carry Association at usconcealedcarry.com.